Admit all. Omit all. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Can you hear? Can everybody hear okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to Zenful Conversations. You can find us every single day having Zenful Conversations in a private group for women. We're in our 5th year of these conversations. For more information on that and the other offerings, please visit zenfulconversations.com. My name is Zenjen Brown. I'm your host, and we're here today with guest speaker Kristin Markey. Hi, Kristin, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful to be here.
Let me tell you a little bit about Kristin. Kristin is a retired kindergarten teacher who lived in New York and California before retiring with her second husband in Florida. After tragically losing her first husband to suspicious circumstances, Kristin pursued legal action to find out how her husband died and who was responsible. On the journey to seek justice and truth, Kristin learned how to process complicated grief, move forward with baby steps, and ultimately reinvent her life to inspire others with hope by modeling a life filled with love and light. Kristin is the author of the award-winning blog Runaway Widow, which is now in its 7th year, and her memoir, No Simple Highway, A Widow's Journey to Seek Justice for Her Husband's Death, is available on Amazon. Kristin, welcome to Zenful Conversations virtual studio.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Thank you not only for agreeing to be with us today, but for being open and vulnerable, delicate, fragile conversation. I want you to know that we appreciate you and thank you. Let me let you talk. What you got? What's on your mind? What'd you come here on your mind?
Well, I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm not sure if you've all read the book or not, but it was something that the whole way that my husband died was very suspicious. We weren't really sure what had happened the night that he died, and so we had to pursue a whole kind of an investigation on our own to find out, and it was quite complicated as far as seeking justice for him and finding out the truth. And after several years of all of that, I finally got around to the idea of like, I needed to write this all out. And I felt, it was cathartic for me. I wrote in my own journal at the time. I had a blog where I would write what it was like to adjust as being a widow, but I needed to tell the story. So that's what inspired me to sit down and actually write a book. And I tried this, it was actually saw it on Facebook, write a book in 30 days. And every day they give you a prompt and you write for, maybe an hour or two each day, but that really kind of organized my thoughts. And I was able to put it all down, and I wrote the whole thing, what had happened and, how I felt about things. And then I hired an editor before, trying to get it published. And she said, the book is really good, but it would be really good if you changed it all from past tense in a memoir to having it happen present tense, like it's happening right now. So I had to change every sentence from past to present, which was an interesting way of, editing your book.
Yeah.
Right. But then it kind of made the book a little bit more like intense. And from what I've heard from people who read it, was more like, oh, I couldn't put the book down. I wanted to find out what happened. And that's kind of how we were, for the couple of years while we were trying to find out what exactly had happened. And,
well, let me go back to your bio for a minute. Your bio says after tragically losing her husband to suspicious circumstances. Can you help us understand what happened?
Sure, I'll tell you. So what happened was, it was a typical Friday night in the summer, Labor Day weekend. We were sitting on the beach. I lived in New York, and in New York, there's a place called Long Island, and Long Island has a North Shore. And we lived in a beach community. So our house was right across the street from a beach. We just walked over. We were sitting with friends as a Friday evening. I had just set up my kindergarten classroom all day long. So it was like, okay, now it's finally Friday. And he left the group of the circle of friends and went over to the clubhouse, and it's just a small building, but that's where he went to use the restroom. And when he went to the restroom, he got into a fight with two of the men in there. They were having some kind of a party, and two men got in a fight with him and they killed him. And we didn't know that at the time. I went home. I thought he had gone back to the house. I didn't know where he went. And the ambulance came down and left that building. And someone said, "That looked like your husband." So my friends rushed me to the hospital. And at the hospital, he was already dead. And we had to have an investigation. The police came later that evening to my house and they said, "Okay, well, we interviewed everybody and there'll be an investigation and we'll let you know." But meanwhile, these two men who were involved, just nobody got arrested from the whole situation. And a couple of days later, we hadn't heard anything. So it turned out that we suspected that the two men had connections with the local police department and that they knew people. And it was a very corrupt scene at that time. You've probably all heard about the Gilgo Beach serial killer on Long Island. There was Gilgo Beach. They were having this. They were having a hard time solving the serial murders, and it was because the chief of police was doing all this behind it.
Wow.
Yeah, corruption, full of
Wow.
corruption. It was an investigation. He was beating people. He was holding evidence back. He ended up in jail. The chief of police, the district attorney, and the corruption person. So they all ended up in jail.
Wow.
They were all the ones in charge at that time. So a lot of things kind of just slipped through the cracks as far as law
I
enforcement.
can't imagine going through that though, in the state of mind you were in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what made you decide to write a book, because many of us have a book in us, and I was wondering
Sure.
what it was that made you decide to share your story. What
Well,
made you decide to do that?
so many people had heard bits and pieces of this story. They heard had been a fight. They heard that there had been drinking. They had heard that the police were involved. They had heard this. They had heard that. They had seen, I was on the news several times. I was interviewed by NBC News and like the New York City News and all over. It was in the paper. So I wanted to tell the story from the beginning to the end about, at least from my perspective, what exactly had happened. And people would say, "Oh, are they in jail yet?" And I'm like, "Well, they're not going to jail. They had a whole grand jury. They didn't get indicted because the district attorney was in charge of the grand jury, which is a whole other complicated thing. When they're deciding whether or not something can go to trial, they have a grand jury, and it's just for 23 jurors. But our side didn't have any say in the matter. We didn't have any, we weren't able to see what they were giving as evidence. Only that family who had been there, those two men, they were able to speak to the district attorney and all the jurors, which was also very strange. So all of the information that was gathered at the grand jury hearings was not ever known to us, and including a video. There was a video footage of the entire thing happening, which is what was eventually the news people got it, and it was on NBC News. And
Oh, wow.
it took me years to be able to even stomach watching that. But
Oh,
yeah. So I don't know if
that's
they showed that to anybody in that first preliminary, hearing thing.
again, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable. Do anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Kristin? We're talking about her book, actually. This is Kristin and I actually know each other. We are both Heartwood alumni, and we have Stephanie, who is on the line also, who is a Heartwood alumni as well. We're talking about her book, No Simple Highway, is the book that she wrote, A Widow's Journey to Seek Justice for Her Husband's Death. And one of the things I like about your book is how you refer to many other books.
Mm-hmm.
You refer to these other books. And On Death and Dying is one of the books you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to study with that book myself in one of the courses at Heartwood Yoga in the certified yoga therapist training that they offer. And on page 51 of this book, you have On Death and Dying. It talks about guilt.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, that isn't listed as one of the five. And sometimes there's seven, sometimes there's five stages of stages of grief. But guilt is so prevalent, and I think anybody who's ever lost anybody has to always feels that way. Oh, should I, done this, or should I have done that? There's so many should I haves. And in my situation, oh, why did we go down to the beach that night? We should not have gone to the beach. We should have just stayed home and had dinner. Why did we go down to visit with our friends? Maybe if we brought sandwiches down and he wouldn't have, I don't even know. All that's in your head, all the things that you should have done. And that went on for such a long time that I'm just going to close it.
Sure.
My little dog doesn't like thunderstorms. It's thunderstorming outside. You go play with somebody else.
Yeah,
But,
the guilt. Yeah. Go ahead,
it was hard. The guilt was definitely the hardest one to get over.
So how did you deal with that? How were you able to release that?
Good. Well, that took a while also. I did a lot of things. One of the pages I write about is that, I threw the kitchen sink at it. I just tried everything to deal with the guilt, to deal with my grief. I went into a depression. The first 2 months, I was probably just in shock that this even happened. And I took off from work. I didn't work for 2 months. And then I was feeling better. I had gone on a trip. My son had just started college, of all things. I was an empty nester now. Both my boys were away at college. So I went to visit him in Mississippi, of all places. It was really far from New York. And I went to visit him. Then I came down to Florida and visited my sister. So I was feeling better because I was out of my house. I wasn't home. I was kind of escaping. That's where I get the runaway widow from. I was like running away from it all. And when I got back, the holidays hit full steam ahead. November, Thanksgiving came, and I kind of didn't really want to do Thanksgiving, but my in-laws had just moved from Florida back to New York because they were so devastated that Mike had died. So they were like, okay, it's time for a holiday. We're going to do Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh. So after that, we kind of made it through the day, but I just kind of slipped. And then I started feeling really depressed and crying all the time. And then I went back to school where I was teaching, but then it was Christmas time. And again, all those emotions, all those memories of Christmas come up. And that was a really hard time for me. And then seeing everybody decorating their houses and the dads, bringing the trees home.
Right.
I couldn't handle that. So I took some more time off from work and started seeing a therapist, and, a grief therapist who could do the EDMR. If anybody's ever done that before, it's this bar, and your eyes go back and forth, and your whole state, you're, doing something with your hands, and you're just kind of working through the trauma of whatever it is that you've gone through. So you go through the whole night, and how were you feeling, and tell me about that. And then you go, so I did lots and lots of crying, and I did lots of that to get it out, to release that. And then was on a little bit of medication for a while, and just started trying lots of things. I went to yoga. I started yoga classes. I went to, I did breath work. I tried acupuncture. I planned trips. I knew that the holidays were going to be a trigger for me. So I started to plan ahead. So I knew, his birthday was coming up. All right, we're going to go do this for his birthday. Then when the 1-year anniversary was coming up, that was a big one. I was like, I can't sit around and watch the beach, sit outside and look out my window. So I went to Thailand, which is not what everybody does, but that was, for me, that was the right thing to do. I booked a flight and I traveled by myself, and then I found a tour group that I went with for like 2 weeks, and we did all this great stuff, and it was very healing. We did the elephants and lots of monasteries, and just a healing experience, just to keep myself busy, and that type of thing. That was working for me. That
Sure. Well, you say that, did I hear you say that you were really only a couple months before you started getting active again and going out?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I'll tell you, I had, all of us have different types of traumas and different things that catch us out of nowhere. And you can easily stumble up on those and be stuck in that space for years,
Oh, yeah.
So that's really awesome that you got right back out like that. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing and what you're sharing. Um, any questions yet from anybody? Taking care of me, chapter 9. Taking care of me, chapter 9, page 67. What did that mean to you at the time you wrote this book? And has that changed now? And can you just tell us a little bit how, what?
Well, yeah, that was probably when I started taking the medication because I was starting to have a lot of panic attacks, where your heart is just racing and you're working with sweat and you just those type of things. So I had to go to a cardiologist and I had to see the physical doctors, physical what is wrong with me kind of situations. And you know, some like you were asking about letting go. I would try to refocus. I would spend my nights, I would wake up and I would just relive that night over and over and over again at 3 o'clock in the morning. So one of the things I needed to do was to change my thinking. Like I can't think like this anymore. I can't just wake up every night and start, reliving every minute and then being mad at those men that are not in jail, like, that kind of thing. So I picked at 5 great memories that I had with Mike, and I would instead reprogram my brain that I was okay. Remember that one, and let's focus on that, and remember how I felt with that memory. Think of the next memory. Just reprogram it, and then did a lot of gratitude. I mean, it sounds sometimes cheesy, like everybody does that, but no, that really, really worked for me. And I would just I'll go for a walk in the morning with my little dog. We got a dog right away too, so that was helpful. And I would take the dog out for a walk every day, and the whole point of the walk was just to think about what I'm grateful for. And even if it was silly things like, oh, that the dog poops, yay, I don't have to worry about him doing that in the house today.
Well, it's
Think of really
true.
simple things. Yeah. And
It's
once you
true.
start thinking of the
Anybody,
simple things, right?
it
It's
is
easier.
true. It is absolutely true. Speaking of which, I have a dog right here that's a little bit scared of the thunder, and he
Well, he's a
hasn't
dumb
been
barking.
feeling well, so I have to hold him for a minute. This is
Like,
Buddy.
yes,
Um,
Buddy.
yeah. So has that changed at all, or I guess not. I guess it's just evolved. Well, has it changed
You know what? And I hate to say that time heals wounds because I don't think that really happens. I feel like, um, it, if you look at the cover of the book, it's like a road with potholes in it. And so my aunt, my elderly aunt wrote me a card and she said, grief is like a road with potholes. And in the beginning, the potholes are huge and you can fall in them and you can't get out and it's very hard. But then as time goes on, you're still on that road, but there's not as many potholes and they're not as deep. So I feel like that's a good visual for how
Mm,
I feel with it now. And I threw myself into life. I said, okay, I'm not going to stay here and just think about this, although I did that for a while. But, you move forward, you keep looking for new things to do. I became a yoga instructor, I'm still looking for somebody to teach yoga to, but I did that. I joined pickleball and I started dating and I got remarried and for that too.
you built a beautiful relationship with yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
You were
yeah.
kind to yourself through this really tragic time.
Yeah.
Goodness. Um, can you share a little bit with us about page 100, The Light Between Us, author Laura Lynn Jackson?
Oh my God, she is just amazing. Have you ever met her or seen her
I do
before?
not, I will reach out to her, let me tell you, and ask her if
Oh,
she'd like to be a
yeah,
guest speaker.
she's
But
big news.
please let us share what that's all about.
Sure, I'd love to do that part. Yeah, so where do I start with her? I'd gone to a psychic, she's a psychic medium, but she's a certified psychic medium. So she's had these tests done to kind of prove that she sees things differently. Her brain does different things when she's doing a reading with someone, and the light between us just talks about how we are still connected. We're all connected. We're connected to each other. We're connected to our loved ones who passed, and that we can connect with them just as well as they can connect. We don't have to go through a psychic medium, basically, is her real message that she wants everybody to know. Then you can just make up your own signs. And that's her second book, is called Signs. And I went to see her speak several times, but she was in a bookstore in New York, and I went to see her, and she told us, you don't need to come to make an appointment with me. You can do this yourself. Just speak, tell your loved ones, okay, I want to make a sign. Think of not just a bird or a coin, think of something different. So my friends and I were thinking, I'm like, I'm going to pick baby giraffe for my, an animal. And then for a word, I picked the word Waterloo because Mike liked this song called Waterloo Sunset. So that was fun. We came up with these words, and she's like, and you put it out there in the universe, it's going to come back to you. So the next day I'm at school and I'm looking through some books I'm going to give to the library. And I just open a book and I open up to the first page. There's a baby giraffe. So I'm like, wow, that's crazy that I just said that last night. And there it is, the baby giraffe. So excited about that. I take a picture. I send it to my friend. She sends me a picture of the penguin that she had manifested the night before too. We're like, wow, this really works. Then I'm reading a book to the children, and it's the Dr. Seuss's ABC book that I wasn't planning to read, but I just picked it up because it was laying there, and I'm like, oh, this is a fun one. I'm just going to read this to the kids. When I got to the W page, it's www. Willie Waterloo is washing Waterloo, and I'm like, Waterloo? Who knew the word Waterloo would be in the ABC book, right? Like it was just pretty wild that those were the two signs from that one day, from her telling us you can just make up your own messages. And so she was certified by the Forever Family Foundation, and Forever Family Foundation, their mission is to, show that life is still connected with people who are departed. They were still part of a family. So I went to a retreat there in Connecticut the summer after Mike had passed, and that was an amazing weekend. It was 2 nights, and they had sessions they had 3 psychic mediums who were there. And so each time you met with like the same group of 12 people, and you had different psychic mediums talking to you and giving you signs. Reading people who were in the group. So you got to hear like maybe similar stories because you've got the same 12 people over and over again. And there were other things going on. There were yoga, there was the singing bowls and drumming, and we went out to this beautiful bonfire and a labyrinth. We did all the great, healing kinds of things. But I had wonderful readings there too, except that I think in all 3 of the sessions, Mike came through telling me that he wanted me to move. And I was like, well, I wasn't ready to move yet because I was still teaching, and my school was only a mile away from my house. And even though it was a little iffy living in that neighborhood with that guy who kind of was in the neighborhood, that was a whole other story. But I didn't want to move out of my house yet. I had a beautiful house, a beach house that we just loved. And, it was important to me to stay there. But the psychic, one of the really cool things with the psychic medium was the last day he was doing a reading, and at the end he goes, oh, I'm getting a sign for like Big Ben, the clock in England, it's Big Ben. And we're like, oh yeah, does that mean anything to anybody? No, nobody says anything. So we all leave, and I walk outside, I look at my phone, and I got a text message from both of my boys who were in London, and they sent me a picture of Big Ben with the words Big Ben on it. Like, I mean, he's not a magician. He didn't know it was on my phone. I didn't even know it was on my phone. So those were some weird signs that I was like, I kind of turned into a believer in this. I know new husband doesn't think so much about this. You'll find lots of people that are still very skeptical, but
Well, I want
I
to
don't
go
know.
back to that. I want to go back to that because whether it be a husband that passed away or anybody that passed away, this communication.
Yeah.
How deep, would you mind sharing how deep your communication has been? I mean,
The more you believe it, the better it is. Here's another story. So I'm going to show you in this room that I'm in right now. See these weird lights?
Yes.
Do you see these weird lights? So
Yes.
when we bought this place, it has these lights up here and they go around in a circle. And it's lovely, you know, it's interesting. I think it's kind of cool. But while I was writing my book, I would be sitting here at the desk, and sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd get up and I'd start typing the book and I edit it or whatever. And the lights would go on and off. So I went to another psychic medium recently, and she gave me some good stuff, whatever. But then at the end, I said, "Well, I want to know if my late husband or if my mom, because my mom passed away and she was a published author." I said, "Or my mom, well, what do they think about my book?" Well, if she knows everything, she can tell me, right? So she says, "Well, he likes the book. He's proud of you, yes." And then he goes, "But your mom thought the book was a little dark. So she was trying to give you signs that you needed to lighten it up." So she did something with the lights. I'm like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
And then I made the connection that that's these lights were going off and on and on. And I was writing all this bad stuff about the cops all the time, you know, so I had to lighten up the book a little bit. My mom was telling me from the other side, and I
Wow.
had to make it a little bit more healing, and, you know, we could all relate to.
Has
So
anybody
that was kind
here,
of cool, you know.
I was just wondering if anybody here has any kind of communication like that they would like to share at all. Yeah, go ahead. Take your mute off. Go ahead. Nope, you're still on mute. Let's see.
More than it's all. Okay, got it.
There you go.
I have to touch it.
Yeah, there, but I missed
Stephanie,
Yeah, my husband
Stephanie was on, and Jody will come right to you, please.
my
She was
husband
already
passed
on.
away 2 years ago from COVID, and I got it as well, and I was also very sick, but I didn't go to the hospital. He did. I didn't experience a whole lot of guilt, but he did. He was messing with my lights, my clocks. He shut my watch down, my clocks. I have a picture of my atomic clock with the date of January 34th, 2022, because it's atomic and it's automatic. You can't. Anyway, he shut down the two clocks, the one I had in the bathroom and the one in the kitchen. He was making my front light in the driveway flash on and off. I was taking my granddaughter to her softball practice, and it was dusk and the light was flashing, and I took a video. But recently I replaced some ceiling fans, and I got LED lights in the one in my bedroom. And there was 3 specific times that the light just came on all by itself. And it was a clear message that he approved, or he wanted me to do something. The last one was my grandson, who was 20, moved out of his house, and he was still on good terms with his parents, but his parents were up in North Carolina, and he moved to Tampa, and he was coming back to Bradenton, and he wanted to meet me for lunch, which I thought was great. So and he had posted a picture on Facebook of his work partners wearing shirts and ties, and the women were dressed, and I thought maybe it was picture day. I didn't know. So I asked him if he wore ties all the time, and he said yes. So it was really just a dress for success idea. And I said to him, "Well, while you're here, why don't we just go?" I said, "Do you have enough shirts and ties?" And he said, "Well, I was thinking about getting a couple more." So I said, "Well, while you're here, let's go shopping." So he comes in, and my husband had tie clips because he used to wear suits to work, and he would dress and wear ties years ago, like before we moved to Florida. And he worked for Outdoor Life magazine. So he had like binoculars, and the tiny little binoculars, and a fly for fishing, like a fly that you put on a hook and you fly fish. Anyway, my grandson picked, I don't know, eight or 9 of them, and he took them, and I took him shopping. Long story short, 6 shirts, 4 ties, 2 pairs of shoes, a pair of pants, and a belt later. He was very happy. Well, I came home, and I was sitting in the living room, and I had to get up, and I went into the bathroom, and as I was walking into the master, the primary bedroom now, the light was on and I didn't put it on. So he was letting me know that he approved of the gift to my grandson, both the buying and the tie clips. He was very happy with that. So I get it. You don't need to go to a medium. I don't need to have a seance. I can, he's here all the time. I talk to him all the time. So I can feel a lightening though. There's the potholes are smaller. Let's put it that way. The analogy I used, it felt like I was walking in the very beginning. It felt like I was walking in thigh-high mud. And now it's, I'm much better. There was a release somewhere around year 2, like that mark, and it's better. Doesn't mean you don't feel it or you don't miss him or you don't talk to him or whatever. It's just, it's better. That's my experience.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great. And it's great that you're noticing and accepting that that's what it is, that that's a sign,
Absolutely. It can't be anything else because it hasn't happened again since.
Other times.
There were 3 times that it happened, but each time it was something specific that he wanted, or he was trying to let me know something. So it hasn't happened since. So it has to be.
Yeah. I know my brother and my sister are true believers now too. And we're always like, we're noticing things and we'll be like, oh, that's, a sign from this. And even if you put it out there and ask for something like, oh, is this, when I was buying the house here, the same thing happened. I said, all right, if this is the house we should get, just give me a sign this morning, the word Genesis, because it used to have a landscaping company called Genesis.
Oh boy.
Yeah. We're driving down, 64, and first we stop, and then there's a car, and it has the word Genesis on the back because that's what kind of a car now. And then we get here, and we go out on the lanai, and there's an old grill out there, and that says Genesis. I'm like, all right, thanks for the Genesis word. I guess this is a good place to live now. He approves. I finally moved.
Right.
Oh,
and so obviously
Stephanie.
he approved. Yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that.
It's no problem.
Thank you for sharing all of that. You got a dog as well.
Oh, well, my husband's dog passed away 6 months after he did. I had to put him down. So that was really rough. And then the house was deathly quiet for like 6 weeks. And then I just said, it was like my birthday. And I said, I'm buying a puppy.
Yeah.
So I found a breeder and I picked her up, and I've had her ever since. She's a sweetheart, and she's not afraid of the thunder, thank God, because the other one was horribly afraid, just so afraid. So afraid. She's over there sleeping with her paws up in the air. So
that's good. Yeah. Well, the storm kind of stopped now, so he's better now.
Yeah, it did.
I am sure she is well taken care of.
Yes, she is. But yeah, it does keep you busy. And I'm planning trips now. I'm going to Italy in November with a group of women that I've, just found it, like it just kind of fell into place. So I'm going.
That's
Cooking
cool.
tour in Sicily.
You might enjoy her blog. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Check it out. It's called Runaway Widow. It's on, just type in RunAwayWidow.com or something. But there's a bunch of different blogs. And some of the trips I did by myself, and some were with groups of small groups, travels. Those are kind of fun too. And or girlfriend getaways. Those are nice. I'm always up for something. I'm like, yeah, I'll go.
Exactly. So I know it's time. I needed to do it. And on the 2nd anniversary of his death, I wound up being with his family, which was not intentional. I was looking at airfare, and it was, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Wednesday was the best price. So I just booked Wednesday without looking at the date. And when I realized that I got the chills. It was actually the anniversary of his death. So I needed to be with his sisters because but how weird is that, like you're just booking for the best price, not thinking of the date, because it didn't matter the date. I needed to be there for Friday. I didn't need to be there Wednesday. So I figured, let me just get the cheapest one. It was that day. And it was a wonderful visit. It was really very healing. It wound up being a wedding, even though they said it was an engagement party, but it doesn't matter. It was like it was good stuff, not, it wasn't a sad get together. It was a very good thing. So, and that was great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Probably pretty healing too.
it was. And maybe that's
Yeah.
what pushed me over the edge, because after like, it just seemed like this summer, something eased. So it's like the 2-year mark. It's maybe I spent the time with his family. Maybe, I don't, obviously we were married 50 years. So it's not his family. That's my family, like
Yeah, exactly.
50 years. I mean, I know his sister since she's 9 years old. So
Right.
she doesn't know anything else. Like, I'm part of the family. So, anyway.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
sharing.
welcome. No
Good
problem.
seeing you. Good seeing you here too.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you too, Jody. Thank you so much. Did you want to share? Have something to share? Jody, are you frozen? There you go.
My internet's only working like maybe 20.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I've missed most of it. So it doesn't make sense for me to talk because I'm just keep freezing. So
Well, let's give it a shot.
it's been frozen more than it's not been.
Ah,
What was the name of the psychic that you went to? What was the name of the psychic?
Which one?
I missed most of it. I just heard you say she was certified.
Yeah, that was Laura Lynn Jackson. It's her name. Her book over here. Hold on, I'll get her book.
Okay.
the light. The book
I've
is the book is titled "The Light Between Us." Laura Lynn Jackson.
And that's the first book. This is her second book, Signs, and it says The Secret Language of the Universe. The author of
I've had hundreds of experiences, and I spend a lot of time in classes studying this stuff. And with all, like, I've studied with Bradley Valentine and James Van Prague, and have you heard of Colette Baron Reed? She's amazing. She's got an oracle school, but she's amazing. So I have them all the time. Sometimes it feels like he's like here physically, my husband, and it's a lot.
Mm.
The first time it happened, it scared the heck out of me, and I have confirmation because the dog will respond. So I know.
Yeah.
Imagining it, but the first time it happened, it really scared me, and I was like too scared to acknowledge it. And then when it was over, I was like, oh my God, now my chance is gone. So next time I'm not going to be scared.
That's great.
After my mother died, 2 days after my mother died, I found my first feather inside my house. All of a sudden there was a feather in my house. And after that, I have them all in a jar. No matter where I went or what I did, there was a feather. I'd go to a parking lot and pick one empty space out of a whole empty parking lot and get out and there'd be a feather. And I have them all in a jar, and now I get them on like a really special day or a really hard day or something like that, and they'll just be let the dog out. And for a long time I didn't understand why it was feathers, and I realized just recently loved birds. She just adored birds, and so that's why she picked feathers, because she adored birds. So, but I wish my internet was working better.
I know what you mean about the dog. When it was like this 2 weeks after Mike had passed, I got a little dog. It was my birthday and my son's birthday. So you mentioned birthdays. That's why we went out and got a puppy. And we brought him home, and he would do the same thing. Like in my room on my bed, he'd be like looking at something. I'm like, what is he like looking at? And it totally seemed like he was looking at something. Like, and then I went, the first psychic that I went to, she said, she came up with some really weird stuff too. She's like, do you have a, well, first of all, she goes, why does your husband stand across the street from your house? And that's where he died. I'm like, well, that was weird that she knew that one. And then she says, well, he sits in a chair. Do you have a green room? And I said, no, I don't have any green rooms. She goes, well, he sits in a chair in a green room by these like yellow sunflowers. Nope, no. And then I remembered my bedroom has a chair and it's green and it had this vase with sunflowers in it. I don't know why when she was asking me, I couldn't remember that that was my own bedroom, but sure enough, like, and she goes, yeah, he sits in that chair and and she goes, who's Harry? And I go, that's my dog. She goes, well, he likes Harry. Harry sees him, and you know that, don't you? Because she knew, like, how did she know that I knew that? Like, weird stuff that they come up with, that they seem to know. And again, that wouldn't be written anywhere that she could read about it. And I didn't tell her my name other than a first name and showed up somewhere. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my dog the first time she went to the bottom of the recliner. She was about to go off like somebody was there petting her. I mean, she was going like somebody was scratching her ears, and it was crazy. It was crazy. Just and it was weird.
And weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Jody, she knew everything.
You've got so many stories that are really in line with this question here, with this subject. Jody has shared before some of her amazing experiences, and the dogs for sure played a part in that, which is really kind of neat. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Good seeing you too.
You too.
Good seeing you. Chapter 25, turning the page. What is the message you'd like to get across to us here and those listening in?
Are we turning the page? Oh, yeah.
Well, what is the message that you'd like to get across?
I have to look at the book again. Yeah, that's the end. Well, basically moving forward, we just keep moving forward, and however you need to do it, take the baby steps, and you just don't stop. You don't go backwards. You don't live in the past. That's not going to help ever. You should just stay back there. Just keep, some days it might be easier. Some days it's going to be harder, but it's a moving forward, and it's okay to change things up a little bit, after all this was settled, then suddenly, I got remarried. I retired from a job. I moved down to Florida. Things shake it all up, but things are good. I'm in a good place right now. My boys, they're good. I don't know how they dealt with all of that as well. That's something they didn't really talk to me about. Boys, don't talk about me. Okay.
I didn't think about that. I didn't think about, how your children dealt with not only the loss of their father in a very traumatic way like that, but you bringing it out and sharing it with everybody in doing what you were doing. How did they react to that?
That was going to be my question.
Oh,
thank
great.
you. Kim.
I was saying, where were you, Kim?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I'm not supposed to talk about them. Like, one of them does not want me to ever go here, don't do this. This could have gone on and on. We could have continued with a civil lawsuit. We pursued the civil lawsuit, but we settled out of court. So it was a money thing, but it was going to be a money thing no matter what. Even if you go to civil court and you go to trial, you get there finally, all that's going to do is they're going to say, okay, this is how much money you have to give her. So after all of that, it would have just been a money thing. So settling was better for me because it was done. We could just cut it off and be done with it, and closure. And it was better for the boys. They didn't want this, because then, my attorney was like, okay, we've done 2 TV shows. We've done, not shows, we've done 2 news, alerts and everything. We've actually done, we were on television 3 times. We were in the news a couple of times. We wrote this petition. We did some other stuff. Then he wanted to do one of those TV shows, those unsolved mystery TV shows. I'm like, well, that's the last thing my kids want me to do right now. Like, that would not have flown. So, we were like, okay, that's enough. We kind of dragged them through it a little bit. They know they did something wrong. We made them they had to be responsible by paying some money and going to court and doing all that. Would have been better if they had gone to jail. Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. But we
No,
weren't
you
going
did what
to
you needed to do. In my mind, I see it too. I accomplished
Yeah.
what I needed to accomplish. I have closure, and that's all. I do not want to go through this crap
Right.
anymore.
I did the best we could. We did the best we could. You know, we fought a good fight and now we're done. And now we can put that
Yeah.
behind us. And that was for the boys too, you know, like that
That's
now we can move forward. We can all move
that's
forward. We
would
can do
work.
something.
That's would work for me too. I'm like, some people that wouldn't. Some people would definitely want to pursue it to the max, and that's to be honored and respected too.
Exactly. Right. That's just not
But for me, I'm like, if I don't have to deal with it, it's better.
yeah. And the
I
boys,
don't
they don't
like
want to
that
talk
kind of stuff.
about it. They, you know, they don't want to really go there at all with me anyway. So I don't know what I don't know what they think.
So
But
let
yeah.
me ask you before I ask the audience, ask everybody if they would like to ask anything. Now that you have had all this exposure and wrote the book and all this stuff, how do you feel about your decision to write the book to start with? Are you glad you did it? Do you know, have like, oh, why did I get myself into this fix?
No,
Something
I'm
way
glad
down.
I'm glad I wrote it, and I'm pleased with the nice reviews I've heard from people. Like many of them were my friends or acquaintances, you know, but then there's been a lot of other people who are widows or know somebody who maybe this is just helping them to understand what we go through, you know, like and your emotions. I remember when I first became a widow, I went to the library looking for a book. I'm like, I don't know how to be a widow. None of my friends are widows. What are we supposed to do? So and there was like no books for the widows out there, you know, that there's no how to be a widow book. I found one that I wrote about her in the book too, Signs of Life, it was called. And she was a young woman. She was pregnant when her husband died in a wakeboard accident. And it was basically her processing each month of the year. And she was also a teacher, so she went through the school year pregnant, processing what had happened, you know, the death of her husband. And just knowing that somebody else had had a husband that died and hearing all about it, you know, without it being my mother. My mother also had my dad died, so but that was different, you know. Although it was very helpful, but it was just nice to hear from somebody. So that's why I think that I put the book out there also, is hopefully for women who read it and realize, hey, you know, you're going to go through this roller coaster and you can try this and you can try that and go out and try to make some friends. Because a lot of people say that they're so lonely when they're a widow, you know, like, well, go try this meetup group or try this yoga class or try this or try that. And maybe try online dating. It might work out. And mine did. So, you know, maybe that would be a thing to do. So just sort of like a little bit of hope, a little bit of like, hey, you know, this is something we can all do this. So that's my thoughts on writing the
Yeah.
book.
Well,
And it was,
you see two ladies here that that are widows and are joining in the conversation, which says a lot. Do either of you have anything you'd like to want to make sure that you leave saying, I don't want you to leave and say, I wish I'd asked her that. Do either of you have anything you'd like to ask or share? What about anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, please.
You said you met your husband on online dating? No, see,
yes,
you met your husband online? Yeah, I'm
yes.
done. That's not, it's
Did you
horrible.
try
I
it?
just think it's horrible. Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay. No, I got really lucky. I was hoping to find somebody nearby because I didn't really want to have a pen pal in another state or something like that. So this fellow just lived, you know, a couple miles away, and we met for dinner, and that worked out well. And then we're like, okay, we'll go to dinner next weekend too. And we went to dinner. Actually, I'm wearing the outfit I wore on our date. It was this nice little dress. I know. I figured it was good luck on the date. Maybe it'll be good luck on my first podcast. So, but yeah. So and then we just started dating, and he has an ex-wife who lives now in Florida, but no kids. So maybe the no kid thing was helpful for, you know, as being older. And we just hit it off, and we did some traveling. He doesn't mind traveling, so you know, we have gone on a couple trips, which I enjoyed doing that with somebody else. And it's just nice to have somebody around the house, you know, like who knows how to take care of, like, fix things around the house and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
But,
So you
know,
said he did live, it turned out he lived nearby.
yes, yeah, he was only 5 minutes away, so
Oh,
that
wow.
was really
I
convenient.
like convenience myself. I'm definitely a
Yeah,
I
that, and
could
he's
still
taller than
go
me.
if I go that far.
I know, 5 minutes.
I
I
find that
know.
hilarious. That's hilarious. What a great
I think my list
story.
is just too long. I'm kind of picky. Right.
Oh, yeah. See, I wasn't really thinking I was going out. What happened was I had this really good friend, and we were doing everything together. We were traveling together. We bought a boat together. We were almost going to live together, and then she got a boyfriend, and I was like, oh, now we're going out on the boat with her boyfriend all the time. So yeah, there's like 3 of us hanging out all the time, and that wasn't so much fun anymore. So then I was like, well, I'm going to go try this online dating too. And I just put my name in. And then at first, nobody like talked to me, and I got very sad. I got bent out of shape. But luckily, somebody talked to me, and that worked out well. So, but yeah, it's a little hard to get your your feet wet. And then we just tried it, and he's a lot different than husband number 1, but a lot of good qualities, So yeah, it's not going to be the same thing. You can't compare, like my mom had 2 totally different husbands. I kind of do what my mother did and what my grandmother did. It's kind of funny that we have a history of this. Like my grandfather, he passed away when my grandmother was 51, and then she remarried. My dad passed away at 61, and then she remarried. So I'm kind of like, well, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do next, So, even
Oh,
if I don't have a how-to book, I had my mom as a role model. So
That's hilarious. Hilarious. Thanks, Jody. Kim?
Was the date now husband a little freaked out when you told him your story?
Good question. Yeah, the first night I didn't want to tell him anything. I'm like, I'm not even telling him my last name. I don't want him Googling me, because once you Google me, if you Google my name, there's all kinds of these articles and the video and all that stuff. So I didn't say anything the first night. And then actually that was when we were talking. I think when we finally had dinner, by that time we'd been texting back and forth a little bit. So he knew that my last name by then. And it turned out he had worked with my brother-in-law, Mike's brother. Isn't that weird? Such a small world.
Yeah.
In New York City, they worked together. Yeah, he was, and I just tried to tell him a little bit of the story. If you try to condense that whole story, it kind of goes all over the place. So I tried to make it as short as I could, but he still wants me to change the name of my blog. He's like, why are you the Runaway Widow still? You're married now. I'm like, oh well, I'm going to write another widow blog to help them, all those people.
Right.
Hey, I am thanking you for your work that you do.
Thank you.
I think it's important work that you're doing. We should be acknowledged for this work that we do. Stephanie, did you want to say something? Kim, thanks. Not yet. See if I do that.
There we go.
There you go.
I would like to thank you for the hope. There's, I have a divorced friend who is on Facebook dating, and she's just met another guy on Facebook dating. So it's like online dating, except it's Facebook. So it sounds like there is hope for a few at some point. And that's great. I don't know if that's in my future or not, but I'm not ready to do something like that. But hey, maybe that was my second message,
Yeah, you're getting okay when the lights are flickering. See, what do you think? Yeah, I mean, you just try it, and you just think of it as fun. Don't think of it as like it has to be like serious. I mean, there's plenty of things you could talk about later, but
Right. And I don't even know that I'd be interested in super serious, like just somebody to spend some time with, and
yeah,
that sounds
That's
like
right.
good fun. It doesn't have. I don't think I ever want to get married again. Like that's like not even on the table. I don't think. But who knows, right?
Who does know? Who does know? Because I know this. I did not lose my husband, but I had a divorce. I was married for 20 years. And I'll tell you, it was a heavy relationship, and I did not want to have another deep relationship because it was too heavy. I don't want it.
Right.
So I just wanted a light relationship. And now Steve and I are 22 years.
Good for
Oh,
you.
wow.
22 years now. So you never know.
Oh, you really.
Never
know.
know. You never know.
So-
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Thank you so much for sharing. Any final questions from anybody?
Mm-mm.
I just wanted to say thank you for cleaning up the justice system a little bit while you were at it.
I know, right? Well, oh my God, and gosh, the guy who was the chief of police, he was in jail for 5 years. He got out. He, just hanging out at the house, staying home now, keeping a low profile. He just got arrested last month for soliciting prostitution in a park
Of
with
course he
men.
did. Mhm.
And he was the one who they say was at all these parties where they did drugs and stuff with the prostitutes at Go-Go Beach, where that's where on Long Island they found the 10 bodies out on the beach. And so it's just, yeah, he's somehow connected with all of that. But
I'm
yeah,
Kristin,
so
originally from Long Island.
I'm
Oh,
from
you are?
Long Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
from and beach community. But
Which
my
one?
brother, Long Beach, on the
Oh,
ocean
okay.
though. So
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
said North Shore, I knew it wasn't. My brother-in-law was the police commissioner, but he passed away 6 months after my husband. And
Oh,
Wow.
that was my husband's sister's husband. So and that's the house I went to visit. So we've become very close because we share the same
Mhm.
feel, but he went down for cereal and never came back up. So like totally different. Like my husband was sick for 30 days. So
Mhm.
and he had a heart condition. So like I always anticipated him dying first, but you never know. Like I've known people
Mhm.
who've been deathly sick and their spouse, their caretaker dies first. So you just don't know. But
Yeah.
so we share a lot. And I think she probably has more guilt than I did,
Mhm.
but anyway,
Mm.
Long Island, small community, really
Yeah.
is.
It is. We run into the same people. Well, actually, how's this for a funny story? I started playing pickleball with this woman down here in my neighborhood, and we met her husband and my husband at the little community, like the bar over here. And the husbands look at each other and they're like, "Oh, I know you. They used to take the same train to New York City from Huntington, New York, for like 20 years." And now we
Yeah.
all live in the same neighborhood, and I'm friends with his wife before they ever like talk to each other after being on the
Wow.
same train every morning for 20 years.
It's a very small world, very, very small.
And they recognize
Incredible.
each other. Yeah, it's crazy.
Incredible. Incredible. Kristin, you are so open and so real. Thank you for sharing your realness. I mean, you just spoke from your
Yeah.
heart. And do you have any final thoughts before we share your contact info?
Let me think. Hold on. I wrote something, but I forgot. Okay,
Because I want
here's
to
my
make sure
question.
you leave too, and you don't say,
Yeah,
"Darn, I wish I
I'm gonna
said
ask you a
that."
question. So if I were to write another book, what do you think I should write about next?
Ooh, ladies.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, do you want to write a true story, or do you want to just write about anything
Anything.
and not a true story?
It could be a true story.
I think you would have, the bare bones of a book to write something about, like a criminal investigation kind of thing.
True
Yeah,
crime.
with some other stuff mixed in,
Okay. Interesting. Thanks.
Cool. She's sounding like Zorro now or something.
Right?
That's interesting.
Hmm.
I personally think you should offer Zoom groups.
Zoom groups.
Yeah, and come up with little tiny plans, like little workshops.
Widow adventures.
Yeah, I know.
Travel group.
People would go on. Well, there's a lot of widows out there who do like they have little blogs or podcasts and stuff like that too, or they do these
Well,
things.
and you've had experience with communication. And I think that would help a lot of people realize that they can communicate and really strengthen our overall, everybody, the way they feels about that. That would just really help a lot. I think, but I'm a fan of these little group things.
You could do so much. You could have a travel agency called Runaway Widow, where you had trips that were,
Oh,
that whole,
yeah.
you could
Oh,
do
that'd be
all kinds
fun.
of stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
trips.
That's for sure. That's real cool. That you could definitely have a travel agency like that. Um, yeah,
I'm in.
definitely.
I'm in.
Maybe just plan
Oh, you're coming,
retreats.
Stephanie's. Oh, okay, Stephanie's coming.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
maybe just plan retreats. That runaway widow is like the runaway bride. I mean, it's perfect if you ask me.
Mhm.
It sounds familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have anything you wanted to go over before?
Nope, that was it. I just wanted to ask if
Okay.
you had any thoughts.
All right. Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
The only thought I had, Jen, was that when you were willing to start another relationship again for 20 years, you were much younger than starting now and trying to look at going through
That's
all this
very
again.
true. Very true. I was only
40
36.
tumultuous years. It's hard to then, when you're 60s, go, oh yes, let's do this again.
I wouldn't do it now. I
Yeah.
have zero interest. I wouldn't even do it. I would get myself a dog and I'd call it quits there.
Mhm.
Like Stephanie said,
I would dive
I don't want
so
anything.
deep into this stuff that there'd be no end in sight. So I'm good.
But like Stephanie said, not even looking for something serious, but it's just hard to find even
Yeah.
someone that you like enough to go to dinner twice with. I mean, it's
Yeah, you don't want to
crazy.
waste your time. Kristin's book, No Simple Highway, can be found on Amazon. And I think it's really great. I haven't read it word by word, but what I've looked through, I think it's great. And I tend to go back and read all of it. The direct link to her website blog is RunAwayWidow.blog. That brings you right to the blog itself. You can also follow Kristin at Runaway Widow on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. We will send this information out and more tomorrow in the follow-up email, along with the link for the replay that will come tomorrow. Please visit zenfulconversations.com. Sign up for more of these Zoom conversations. And Kristin, yes, in love and deep gratitude. Thank you so much.
So cool to
Thank
meet
you all for
you.
coming.
Thank you
It's
so
so cool to
much.
meet all of you. Thanks for participating.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, thank you for your awesome questions. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. See you next time. Namaste. Namaste. Bye.
Bye.